Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing really well. This is a short video that is aimed to give you a basic understanding on how to structure and write an essay at a high school level. This is the first part of a series of videos I'm planning to make on essay writing. The main aim here is to give you a basic framework that is fairly easy to remember and can be used to guide you through writing an essay response in both a timed and an untimed setting. This is a model that I've developed and used successfully to teach students in middle and senior level classes across business, history, geography and English courses in the past 10 years. So it is a fairly adaptable model. You may have teachers that will try and approach these structures in a different way and use different terminology, but at the end of the day, the way they teach you and the way I'm going to show you in this video will inevitably bring about the same end product if followed correctly. If not, then you may want to ask questions about why not. Okay, let's get into it. So just to start with, I want to talk a little bit about what an essay actually is. What is an essay is actually quite broad and the definition can be used quite loosely, I believe. But in simple terms, an essay is a persuasive piece of writing that builds a thesis and it supports this thesis with evidence. So it is like coming up with a theory for a topic and finding evidence to support that theory in a written form. Now this may sound kind of dorky, but there are people in the literary world who would call themselves an essayist, where they go and I guess to speak to youth through hip-hop terms, freestyle their responses. Basically they are writing evidenced responses to questions that they think are deserving of their thoughts and are worth answering. This is what humanities and social science faculties at universities across the world are built on.
Woohoo! I'm a college man! I won't need my high school diploma anymore! I am too smart! I am too smart! I am too smart! I am too smart! S-M-R-T! I mean S-M-A-R-T!
But don't worry, at a high school level, you will generally be given something to respond to, whether it be a question, prompt, a quote, or even a general topic, and we will unpack this further in a little while. Being in high school, you will usually receive an essay as a form of assessment task. It's often common for your teacher to give you a few practice responses in the lead up to these types of tasks. And these are a really valuable way of honing your skills because an essay is actually a complex and therefore challenging task to undertake. One thing I've found is that students who get quite good at essay writings are often motivated to practice them on their own, either by doing extra work set or looking at past test papers and practicing the responses from them. Like with all writing, the more you practice, the better you get. The same is true with essay writing. Even an essay that gets full marks could be written better. Such is the nature of writing. Anyway, in a high school setting, you will usually receive an essay task that has either a timed setting to write the response in or is limited by a word count, but not a time constraint. Both of these are problematic in their own ways. A timed response is problematic because it rushes students to think. As a result, the quality of the responses that get written are generally not to the same standard as they would be if they were a take-home task. Largely because there is no time to edit and draft responses. However, in a timed setting, it actually allows a well-prepared student to really stand out from their peers, both through demonstrating their ability to interact with topic knowledge and to demonstrate competence in constructing a complex piece of writing. So it always pays to do your homework. For essays with a set word count, there is an argument that an essay like this can be restrictive of a student's ability to explore their thesis, which theoretically is true. However, at a high school level, courses and topics of study generally have a contained field of knowledge that are being examined in the essay response, and by having a word limit, it hopefully prevents students from wandering too far from outside of the topic and really allows a teacher to examine a student's ability to communicate clearly and efficiently as there has been time to edit the response. Okay, so now that we have established what an essay is and what it is likely to look like for high school students, let's get into the structures of essay writing. So obviously, like any extended piece of writing, an essay has three components: an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. When writing an essay response, or in my case, when marking one, I like to check that each section of the essay is demonstrating these characteristics. I think of it as a checklist, and for you as students, if you can remember this checklist and be able to apply it when writing an essay, you should be on the right track to demonstrating competency with this text type. Okay, so here we go. To start your essay off with, you'll be writing your introduction. This generally is a paragraph that is about setting up the rest of the response. If you write an essay plan beforehand, which is a universal recommendation, this would potentially contain the key points of the plan. Objectively, your introduction should achieve three things. It should demonstrate an understanding of the question, which may involve defining key terms or parameters that are applicable to the response. Also, this section of the essay should be where you establish and present your thesis to the question. The thesis is your response to the question, kind of like your answer. However, the way you frame or shape your thesis may be influenced by the type of question, verb, or command term that the question gives you, which is why it is a good exercise to develop a sound knowledge and understanding of the various question verbs that may be used for essay questions in your course and how to structure responses accordingly. Finally, the introduction should outline the rest of the response, basically give an overview of the evidence you will be presenting in the body of your response to support your thesis. You should aim to do this in a manner which provides a logical evidencing of your thesis and demonstrates a link between your thesis and the evidence. This moves us on to the body of the essay. This is the core of the response, where you are sifting through ideas and evidence to support your thesis and being mindful of the question verb or command term that is being used in the question. This is where you really demonstrate your knowledge of the content and your ability to connect that knowledge to your thesis in a way that allows for an effective response to the essay question to be constructed. Consequently, this is where you are likely to receive the greatest portion of marks for the response. Given that the nature of content varies a lot, it is hard to give a standardized approach to completing this, but some broad rules that you should consider in the body: make each paragraph about a new theme that is connected to your thesis, and perhaps most importantly, ensure you are using correct paragraph and writing structures. Your teacher will have likely tried to introduce you to an acronym for how to remember paragraph structures, such as peel, teal, ice, pedal. There are countless numbers of them. And even though they all have differing key titles and the length of the acronym is different, when you boil them down, they all bring you to more or less the same structure in a response. The acronym which I think is quite useful for the high school level is PEAL, that being point, evidence, explanation, and link. When I'm teaching students how to write a paragraph, I usually say try to make it 4 sentences with 1 sentence for each letter of the acronym. And that is not a bad system to keep in mind, especially when you are writing in a time setting. However, as you get more advanced in your essay writing abilities, you can actually give more detail and write multiple sentences for each of the letters of the acronym. Of course, be mindful that you don't want to fall into the trap of writing too much in your paragraph. This can cause the point of the paragraph to become blurred and lost on the examiner, and can appear like you do not understand the correct writing structures. As a result, this will take away from the overall quality of the response. So keep it succinct and avoid waffling. Start the paragraph with the topic sentence that contains the main point being made by the paragraph. Provide evidence that supports your point. The evidence could be knowledge or facts or quotes from the topic you are writing about. If you are writing an English essay, you would likely be including elements of the text you have been studying as part of that topic to support the point you're making. If this were a history essay, your evidence may be historical events or documents that you have been studying as part of the topic. It really varies from subject to subject. Following the inclusion of evidence into your paragraph, you then want to explain how this evidence you have just provided connects with the point you have made at the start of the paragraph. Finally, you want to link this paragraph into the greater response, and the way you do this really varies by the nature of the response and the point you are making. You should be looking to have either a link back to a point within your thesis, or if your preceding body paragraph is going to be of a varied theme, provide a link that connects it with the paragraph you are writing. In some situations, you would be aiming to actually do both. And I suppose knowing what sort of linkages you need to provide in your paragraph structure is one of the ways that gives a response a sense of continuity about it, and thus contributes to the overall quality of the essay. The more attuned with essay writing you become, as well as how well you know the topic you are writing about, the better you will be able to fine-tune this important element of the paragraph structure. And finally, we have the conclusion. In test situations, I find this is the section of an essay that students tend to do the worst on, often because they have either rushed it when they have found out that their time is almost up, or they have completely ignored the rules of writing a conclusion and have treated the paragraph as an opportunity to dump all of the knowledge they can think of that is related to the topic, and sometimes more so. In short, a good conclusion should do 2 things. It should sum up the main points made throughout the response, as well as reaffirm your initial thesis. As such, students or anyone writing an essay for that matter should refrain from introducing new points in the conclusion. As a rule, if you didn't tell me about it earlier in the response, I don't want to know about it in the conclusion. It's like trying to introduce new evidence in a court case as the judge is about to hand down a sentence to the accused. It just doesn't fly. When it comes to reaffirming the thesis, another common problem I see is students, as they are writing their essay, they have somehow convinced themselves of a new answer to the response, and therefore their conclusion does not match the thesis they wrote in the introduction. To me, this is a planning problem. Either they didn't plan for the essay properly, or they didn't follow the plan they wrote, or they wrote a bad plan. It is important that the conclusion matches what you have said in your thesis, in your introduction, and it should flow throughout the body of the response. Remember, an essay is a persuasive piece of writing. If you can't be consistent in what you are arguing, you are not being very persuasive. Anyway, that's about it for this video. I hope it has given you a somewhat clearer understanding on what essay writing entails and how an essay comes together. I plan to do another video soon that will be based around a worked example of a typical high school essay to demonstrate how these writing structures are put into action and layer it with what I hope will be some useful commentary. So I'll bring that out to you soon. I hope you found this video useful. If you have any questions, pop them in the comment section and I'll try and help where I can. Until next time everyone, take care. Cheers.